They say a parent's love is supposed to be unconditional, but I had to learn the most painful lesson of my life. Sometimes, you are only family if you serve as a shiny accessory to someone else's grand ambitions. It was a cold, rainy evening when my mother quietly shuffled me into the home office, her voice hushed but entirely final, to tell me that I wasn't going to be part of the family's major milestone dinner. I wasn't just being left behind. I was being actively hidden away like an embarrassing secret. My name is Maya, and until that quiet, devastating betrayal, I honestly believed that my sacrifices, my hard work, and my loyalty to this family actually mattered. Growing up, the unwritten rules of our household were incredibly clear. My younger sister, Chloe, was the golden child, the precious jewel my parents, Richard and Eleanor, constantly put on display. She was delicate, demanding, and always got exactly what she wanted. I was the reliable older sister, the one who worked late shifts, paid her own way, and never asked for validation. I mistakenly thought my independence brought them a sense of quiet pride, but in reality, it just made me easy to overlook. It made me the perfect target to be brushed aside when a much bigger, flashier opportunity came along for Chloe. Chloe had recently managed to win the heart of a young man from an incredibly prominent, wealthy dynasty. My parents were absolutely ecstatic. They saw this as their golden ticket into high society, circles they had spent their entire lives desperately envying. To secure the engagement, they threw all their remaining resources into hosting a breathtakingly lavish dinner party at an exclusive city estate. They wanted to project an image of absolute perfection and endless wealth to Chloe's new in-laws. But tragically, an ordinary, hardworking daughter who lived a modest lifestyle didn't fit into that beautiful, carefully constructed illusion. We just think it's cleaner if you don't attend. Maya, my mother whispered, adjusting her expensive pearl earrings without even looking at me. Chloe's future family is very traditional, and they value high-status backgrounds. Your little retail job and simple apartment just don't match the image we are trying to present. We are just going to tell them you're away on a business trip. It's for the good of your sister's entire future. My father stood by the door, silently nodding his approval, completely refusing to meet my eyes. The rejection felt like a heavy weight crushing my chest. They were literally shuffling me out of my own family to make room for a lie. They viewed me as a liability, a poor relative to be hidden away in the shadows. But as I stood there, feeling completely broken, a profound and dangerous secret echoed in my mind. My parents had spent years treating me like a nobody, completely oblivious to the fact that their desperate search for a fortune was about to collide with a reality they never saw coming. The days following my exclusion were a dark, suffocating blur of loneliness and deep heartbreak. I sat alone in my small apartment, watching the family group chat overflow with updates about the grand event. There were photos of designer dresses, premium catering menus, and expensive floral arrangements that cost more than my entire yearly salary. Nobody called to check on me. Nobody asked if I was heartbroken. It was as if I had been entirely erased from existence. I was exposed to the coldest truth imaginable, to my own flesh and blood. I was completely disposable. I cried until I had no tears left, feeling utterly shattered by the people I loved most, until everything changed. As the initial wave of grief finally began to pass, a strange, beautiful transformation happened inside me. The intense pain didn't go away, but it hardened into a quiet, unyielding strength. I realized that begging for a seat at a table where I wasn't wanted was beneath my dignity. It was time to look closely at the reality of our family's true situation, specifically the heavy legal vault documents I kept locked in my closet. 5 years ago, my maternal grandfather passed away. He was a deeply brilliant, self-made man who completely saw through my parents' shallow materialism and vanity. He watched them spoil Chloe while letting me struggle, and he despised it. Before he closed his eyes for the last time, he bypassed my parents entirely and created massive secret family trust worth $15 million, strictly set aside for Chloe's future inheritance. But because he knew my parents were financially reckless and would spend every single cent before Chloe ever grew up, he added one monumental, unbreakable condition. He appointed me as the sole, absolute legal executor and trustee of the entire fortune. I had kept this quiet for years to protect the family dynamic, letting them believe the trust was managed by a distant corporate banking firm. My parents never bothered to read the complex legal fine print. They never realized that not a single dollar of that minus $1 million empire could be moved, borrowed, or released without my explicit, notarized signature. Then the fragile glass castle they built came crashing down. Less than 24 hours before the grand dinner party, my phone rang. It was Chloe, and her voice was a trembling mess of absolute panic. "Maya, you have to help us right now," she sobbed, completely ignoring the fact that she had blocked me for weeks. The estate managers and the luxury vendors just discovered Dad's credit lines are completely maxed out. They are threatening to lock the doors and cancel the entire event right now. Mom says there is an emergency cash clause in grandfather's trust. You have to call the bank and authorize an immediate $300,000 release to save my life. I sat back in my chair, a deep, cinematic calm washing over my entire soul. They had shuffled me out of the family, yet here they were, desperately begging me to fund the very illusion designed to humiliate me. They thought I was a nobody, completely unaware that they were standing over a financial cliff, holding out their hands to the very person they discarded. "I'm truly sorry, Chloe," I said, my voice completely smooth and steady. "But as the sole trustee, I cannot approve a massive emergency withdrawal for a luxury party. It goes entirely against grandfather's strict preservation rules." The silence on the phone was deafening, but the peace didn't last. Within 20 minutes, the heavy sound of footsteps pounded down my hallway. My apartment door burst open, and Richard and Eleanor stormed inside, their faces completely twisted with a terrifying mix of absolute rage and deep desperation. "What is the meaning of this malice?" my mother screamed. Her face flushed as she slammed her hands onto my kitchen counter. "How dare you try to ruin your sister's wedding? Call the bank and sign those release papers this instant." Without saying a single word, I calmly walked over to my desk, pulled out the certified legal execution documents for the minus $1 million trust, and laid them flat under the light. "Read the executor line, Mom," I said, looking her dead in the eye without a single ounce of fear. "Grandfather didn't trust you, and he didn't trust Chloe. I hold the absolute power over this money. And after seeing how quickly you threw me away, this trust is staying entirely locked." My father's face turned instantly pale as his eyes scanned the official legal seals. The crushing weight of their actions finally hit them like a tidal wave. They had spent months shuffling me into the dark, completely blind to the fact that I was the one holding the keys to the entire empire. Suddenly, the arrogant, cruel mother vanished, replaced by a frantic woman begging for mercy. "Oh, Maya, sweetie, please," she stammered, her voice shaking as she reached out to touch my arm. "We didn't mean what we said about the dinner. It was just a big misunderstanding. Of course, your family. We have a gorgeous seat saved for you right at the center table." I stepped back, leaving her hand reaching out into the empty air. "No, Eleanor," I said softly. "You didn't want me when you thought I had nothing. You only want me now because you realized I control everything." The answer is no. The party is over. They walked out of my apartment in broken, defeated silence, their grand dreams of high society status completely destroyed by their own toxic greed. Justice was served not through loud arguments or hatred, but through the quiet, unyielding power of self-respect. The next evening, while they faced the devastating fallout of their own vanity, I sat in my quiet home, enjoying a beautiful, peaceful dinner in perfect tranquility. I learned that true value doesn't come from a grand name or a -$1 million fortune. It comes from knowing your own worth. They tried to shuffle me out of their world, only to discover I was the one who owned the board all along.